update: when being child-free gets you an extra 40 hours a week of work. Original post: I need a place to rant and I'm so grateful for having this sub. I'm also using a throwaway for privacy reasons as I'm about to throw some shade. Background: I work for a huge corporation and am a salaried employee. Relevant later. My job is very project-based and each employee works on their own projects most of the time. Today, our department manager booked a team meeting to discuss upcoming changes. Cool, no problem. At this meeting, we're presented with a memo outlining the changes and hours to be worked for November, possibly longer, as follows. Mandatory 8 to 8 work days every day including Saturdays. Sundays possible if deemed necessary. Except for team members who have children. Their hours will remain 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. Manager finishes going over this and asks any questions. Yes, I have a question. In what world do you think this would be okay? She explains that due to the situation in the last few months, we've fallen behind in projects as team members have to take care of their kids and work at the same time, so we've had to pick up the slack. Me again. Based on our status meeting yesterday, the team members without kids are all on track with their projects, with many of us consistently finishing days before our deadlines. So are you telling me that those of us who don't have kids have to work an additional 40 hours a week to complete projects for team members who won't even be helping finish the said projects? She responds with, I'm struggling to understand why this is such a big issue for you. Excuse me, what? I asked my fellow child-free team members if they're okay with this. All of them say no. The ones with kids are completely silent, of course. I tell her that it's absolutely insane that she thinks this is even close to being okay. She just blinks at me. Then I ask her if she will also be working these hours with us. Of course it's a no. She has a child, an effing 18-year-old, mind you. I was ready to throw my laptop through the window at this point. She then just ends the meeting. I'm fuming. I regroup with my fellow child-free team, and we agree that this isn't about to happen. I email the manager right after to let her know that we will be requesting a meeting with HR and legal department to discuss our employment contracts and hours we're being forced to work simply because we don't have kids. I know damn well that this is effing insane and against all employment policies within the company. She proceeds to call me and tell me that there is no need to go to HR and legal and we can resolve this internally. Bitch, no, we can't. You dismissed me and didn't even bother to listen to the 12 other team members you plan to work to death with any sort of additional compensation. She then says, well, you're salaried, so there's no need for additional compensation. If only I had the ability to choke her through the phone. I collect myself and tell her in the most professional way I could muster that we can discuss this with HR, legal, and I end the call. I proceeded to book a meeting with my child-free team, manager, and HR legal for tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm downing a bottle of wine to calm myself. I might end up unemployed tomorrow, but I'm not letting this go. This is the hill I will die on. End rant. Now for my opinion for OP. I am definitely with you, OP. I would be doing the same thing. The only thing that I would also do is look into some legal action as well, because this is discrimination if I've ever heard of it before, and I don't know what the laws are like in your state, but I would definitely look into that. Best of luck to you, OP. Now for the topic comments before reading the update. OP, we're pulling for you. Look up the protections that your state and city has for workplace discrimination. Family status is only protected for housing federally and not workplace. Your locality may have rolled that into workplace discrimination protections as well. Now, as this is approaching 900 comments, I'm going to lock the thread. She doesn't have a child either if her child is 18. Hope she gets fired and you get promoted. ETA, make sure that you told her you tried to address this internally, but she ignored you and everybody else's complaints at the meeting, then ended the meeting. Later, she tried to discourage you from going to HR, which is set up exactly for this purpose. So you've lost confidence in her ability to manage a team. If HR and the other proper methods don't work, how about the whole group do work really slow or not at all? Then let's see who will pick up the slack. If malicious compliance and revenge subs have taught me anything, it's to treat your employees well if you don't want them to destroy the business. Don't abuse the people you rely on to get shit done. As someone who works in hiring and with HR, come prepared. Do not come to rant. Come with either meeting notes or your email thread. Also, come with exactly what she was requesting and why, by showing who is on this extra work team and who is not and the difference. It's like saying they're black, we're white. Come showing how many extra hours a week this would be and how much overall versus the child team. And show your progress in your projects versus the child team. If they are competent corporate HR, this is the way to get a serious outcome. Now for the update. Before I get into the good stuff, I need to say thank you to everyone who commended, awarded, DM'd on my original post. I was baffled by the number of comments this morning. You all are amazing. I've been reading your comments throughout the day, but couldn't respond as the post was locked per the mod post exceeded the number of comments limit. Some users ask what I do for work. I have to give a vague answer to this for privacy reasons. I work in the regulatory compliance department, and our job is to monitor and enforce internal policies and laws and regulations at all levels within the company. Almost everyone requested an update, so I really hope this lives up to the hype. The meeting took place first thing this morning with the manager, head of HR, another HR manager, 2 labor law attorneys from legal department, head of my department. Legal invited him on the fly this morning, and 13 CFs, 12 coworkers, and me. I started the meeting by explaining why we've gathered here today. Head of my department was dumbfounded. He clearly had no idea what the manager tried to pull. Legal went through the rules of discussion, wait your turn to speak and such. I was first to make my case, and my approach was simple. Show proof, show policy, explain why the policy was violated, and therefore can't be enforced. Boring, yes I know, but if that didn't work, I had other points on reserve to bring up. Side note, I really wanted to go all out and lose my filter and say what I really was thinking, but as we know, that would get me nowhere. So I presented the manager's memo and company's overtime policy, which clearly states that mandatory overtime must be 1, mandatory for all members of the department, hourly and salaried. 2, all members must work equal number of overtime hours, and 3, must be approved by the head of the department. If any of these conditions are not met, management cannot impose and should ask volunteers to work overtime instead. My argument was simple. Manager did not follow policy and purposely targeted the CFs. Highlights of the shit show that followed. Legal asked head of my department if he approved the memo. Answer was an angry no. I could tell that he was livid at the manager. In my head, I'm laughing my A off. Legal asked manager for her side of the story. Answer, I wasn't aware of this policy. I interject with, I find that hard to believe when 3 weeks ago we did an extensive review of that policy being the main objective, and you were heavily involved with each step. Head of HR chimes in with, I can attest to that. I worked with the manager on this project. Let's be truthful, please. In my head, I'm screaming, take that, bitch. Manager says, well, I didn't think policy would apply in this case. Y'all, it took all my willpower not to cuss her out. All of a sudden, her memory came back, and now she's aware of the policy. Legal stepped in with, are you saying that you, the manager responsible for enforcing policies, honestly thought that those same policies don't apply to you? Ah, yes. Head of my department stepped in with, to manager still angry AF, you were blatantly wrong here. There's no need to try and justify it. This is obviously very summarized, but the gist is there. Round 1 was a win. Next were some of the CFs who shared emails between them and her, showing your standard crappy manager behaviors and lack of accountability. She just kept repeating, that's not why we're here today. It didn't stop them from going on though. This was very enjoyable to watch. Then one of the other CFs asked to speak, and let me tell you, this guy showed up with receipts. He spent the entire night creating an analysis, effing pie charts and all, to illustrate how many projects were done by the 13 CFs as compared to the 19 non-CFs. How much time was put in by us versus them. How much vacation sick time was approved for us versus them. For the last year, I was shook. His analysis showed that 13 of us did close to 60% of all the work, while the 19 of them did 40-ish. Don't even get me started with the rest of the stats. This guy wiped the floor with the manager. I hope he gets a raise because he's my hero. Her response? This company promotes work-life balance and wants families to have time to spend with each other, so it's normal that employees with kids get time to do just that. I couldn't hold back. Me, yes, you're absolutely right that the company does that. What you're lacking here is the understanding that family includes other people, not just children. In case you were unaware, all of us have families too. HR interjected with, I believe we have enough information here. The CFs, myself included, were asked to leave the meeting so that they can deliberate, and we were told they'll circle back with us later in the afternoon. Later comes around, we're invited to a meeting. This time it's all the same people, but no manager. Head of my department apologized that this ever happened, thanked us for doing the right thing and bringing it to their attention, threw in a few company lines about equal treatment, yada yada, and told us he will be taking over the managerial duties for the time being. Legal added that the memo is null and void and made it clear that we will not be working those insane hours. In case you're wondering, the manager was offline for the rest of the day. We don't know what happened there, but who cares? We won. Edit. I'm trying to keep up with the comments and read them all. I appreciate all of you. Story 2. Update. My husband got jealous over the girl he led on for years at our wedding. Original post. I, 25 female, got married to my husband, 24 male. We'll call him Jim. A week ago after dating for 2.5 years. Jim has a friend called Misha, 22 female, who was invited to the wedding. He and Misha have known each other since high school and were close friends. And Misha had a very obvious crush on Jim from what he and the others who know them have told me. Jim told me this after I met Misha for the first time and confessed that he leaned into her crush and led her on throughout their high school years and for a little while afterwards. Before we got together because he was struggling with his mental health and he really liked her attention. He seemed genuinely guilty about all of that because he thought Misha was a nice girl and a good friend, and because he showed guilt, I didn't feel the need to bring it up or argue about it despite thinking it was a crappy thing to do. Plus, Misha is a nice girl who has never overstepped boundaries and has been nothing but kind and friendly towards me, and now I consider her a friend too. Misha moved away to the city last year and has done really well for herself and has a long-term boyfriend who none of us have met yet, so when it came to sending wedding invites, I told her she was welcome to bring him as her +1. The first red flag came when Jim was weirdly resistant to the idea of Misha bringing her boyfriend, but he excused it on being concerned about the number of guests we invited, and the matter was dropped. When the wedding day came, Misha showed up in this beautiful dress, nothing inappropriate for a wedding, and with her boyfriend on her arm, who I'll admit is a very handsome guy. Think a Kit Harington type. She also lost weight and has a haircut that suits her better, and I thought that she looked great too. We also found out throughout the night that her boyfriend is very successful and earns more than practically anyone else who attended. Throughout the reception, I noticed Jim glaring at Misha and her boyfriend the whole time, and he was really cold and short towards her when she came over to congratulate us and give us a gift. He was also straight up kind of rude to her boyfriend, who Misha introduced us to him. When his mom, who's always known and liked Misha, mentioned that she was glad Misha found a great guy and praised her boyfriend for being so nice, Jim snapped that at least she won't be desperate and hung up on me for the rest of her life, which I thought was cruel and uncalled for, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't want to argue at my wedding despite the fact that he frankly sounded bitter. The whole thing has left an awful taste in my mouth, and I can't help but to think that Jim got jealous that Misha has found a guy who's honestly quite a catch, who she's clearly very much in love with, and is now completely over Jim. Half update. After getting some PMs from people, I decided to go through his phone while he was napping after work, and needless to say, this marriage is over. I'll post a real update when I have sorted everything out. Now for some advice before reading the update. I think I would have to step back from hubby and see if there were any other red flags that I've missed. He was jealous of this woman and her boyfriend on your wedding day. I cannot imagine how much this hurt you. I am so sorry. How he admitted to treating that girl was the red flag, and OP entirely overlooked it basically. He was okay using someone to meet his own needs and feed his ego for years. How exactly did OP think that makes for a good husband material? But that's the other problem. Way too young, in my opinion, to be getting married anyway. If your husband couldn't enjoy his wedding day, I fear for your future. His only reason to snap is jealousy, but you should be his world. Yes, your husband had a weird reaction and probably is unhappy that someone he slighted and thought not good enough to date him is now doing better than him. But please don't listen to random Redditors crying divorce and annulment because they don't know what they're talking about. Please let your husband know how it made you feel and show him where he was wrong. Now for the update. Hey everyone, I'm posting here because I said in my last post that I would update when I was able to. Pretty much the day after my original post, I got some PMs from people suggesting that I go through my husband Jim's phone to see if he and Misha were truly just friends before this, and that nothing romantic happened between them, and that would explain his reaction at the wedding. He always takes a 45-minute nap after work, so I used that as my opportunity to swipe his phone from where it was charging on his desk so that I could take a look through it. I've seen him put in his passcode a ton of times, so that wasn't an issue. I didn't find anything in his text with her, but I know that Jim goes on Instagram a lot, so I checked there too. The immediate red flag was that he used an app lock that required a passcode to access Instagram, but the dumbass used the same passcode that he uses to unlock his phone, so I got into that right away. It's his birth year, so go figure. And what would you know? I go to his messages with Misha and find messages from him the morning after our wedding, telling her how beautiful she looked that night, how much he'd missed her, how he felt that her boyfriend being there spoiled his opportunity to catch up with her, and that he was desperate to meet up with her. Misha never replied to these messages, and he sent some more to her later that day. I won't get into what he said because they were very personal insults that were frankly just gross. But just think about the kind of stuff you would read on that nice guy's subreddit. Misha left him on read, and when I clicked on her account, it appears that she's blocked him. I scrolled through their messages quite far back, and I believe nothing romantic has ever happened between them. I wish that was all, but looking into his other conversations on Instagram, I found that he's been messaging other girls on there. They seem like aspiring Instagram model types from our area. Most of these conversations were just him shooting his shot and getting left on read. But others had evolved into flirting, and 2 of them resulted in sexting. And the most embarrassing part of all, the nudes he was sending to these women weren't even of him. I know what his body looks like, and he doesn't have a chiseled abs and isn't that well endowed. I think he must have found out a man's profile on some adult website and used those pics, just cropping the face out. These 2 conversations happened in the past 6 months. I ended up texting his mom and his brother from my phone asking them to come and pick him up from the apartment, and then I went to wake him up. I told him that I knew about the girls he was messaging on Instagram and that he needed to pack a bag and get the hell out before I start throwing his stuff out on the street and causing a scene. He started crying and begging me to not kick him out and swore that they were just messages and that he would never actually cheat on me. But I don't believe him for a second. Then he had the nerve to tell me that he didn't want me to tell anyone else about what he's done, but I left the room and started ignoring him by that point. He left with his mom and brother and is staying there from what I know. I blocked him on everything for the time being until I'm ready to tell him that I'm seeking annulment. Thankfully, where I'm from, you can get one almost no questions asked as long as you haven't been married for longer than 30 days, and I've already looked into the process. I haven't really left my apartment at all this week, and I've been calling in sick to work because I don't feel like I can face people. I'm just so embarrassed that I've wasted over 2 years on this man and that I married him in the first place. I don't feel like I can even talk to these people about this, so posting here has helped, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words, advice, and support. I might reach out to Misha when the dust settles, but I think I'll need to build up some courage for that. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for leaving my stepdaughter's birthday party after my husband threw out the cake I made for her? I have been married to my husband Jeff for a year now. He has a daughter, 12, with his deceased wife. When I first met Jeff, it was obvious that he was struggling as a single parent. For my stepdaughter's birthday, he'd usually get a cake from the bakery. This has been the case since her mom passed away. I thought I'd bake her a birthday cake for her 12th birthday that was last week as a gesture to show some motherly love and support. Jeff agreed, and he told me what his daughter's favorite flavors are and what she likes and so on. I baked the cake in the flavor that she likes and the icing she likes, but one thing was missing, and that is the blueberries, and I couldn't include them because I went to the nearest store and they didn't have them. I was running out of time and couldn't get them, so I ended up just leaving the cake as it was, thinking it wouldn't be that big of a deal. The party started and Jeff was busy taking care of everything else. He then came into the kitchen and asked to see the cake before bringing it out. I showed it to him and he got so angry when he saw that there were no blueberries on top. He went on and on about how I didn't fully commit to making the cake and that he trusted me to take care of it, and just basically saying that he should have just ordered one from the bakery. We got into an argument and he ended up taking it and throwing it in the trash can. I was stunned as he said, "You know what? Forget it. I'll get one from the bakery." I blew up and screamed at him. He told me to stop, but I went upstairs, got dressed, and left. He tried getting me to stay, but I refused to and went to my parents. He later called and then texted about how I overreacted and hurt him and my stepdaughter by leaving. Also said that I created this situation by not properly making the birthday cake just because I didn't put blueberries on top. I refused to respond, but my parents say that he was justified since he must have felt pressured from the stress of making his daughter happy on her birthday. He keeps trying to speak to me, but I don't respond. Am I the a-hole? Did I overreact? And now for the advice. Not the a-hole. You went out of your way to research what kind of care your stepdaughter would want, put in the effort to bake a cake, after agreeing with the dad on you baking the cake, and baked a lovely birthday cake. It was just missing one kind of deco because you couldn't source it in time. He went nuclear and threw out your cake? Yeah, I wouldn't have stayed around after that either. It is a childish, vindictive, aggressive, and a hurtful way to deal with what he saw as a less than perfect situation. He seems extremely overprotective of his daughter. She's 12 and would probably love this cake even if it didn't have blueberries. Even if she had noticed and said something, she could have been told the shop ran out, and at her age she should be able to understand that and lean in to deal with that kind of a disappointment. Are you pushed aside in other parenting situations too? How is your relationship with your stepdaughter? It's only been a year and he already treats you like this? I'd reconsider this marriage. OP is not the a-hole, but also blueberries aren't in season, at least in the US. Her husband is aware of what month and season it is since it's his daughter's birthday and shouldn't have faulted her for the store not having fresh produce out of season. Blueberries aren't in season, but they're available in my local Midwest suburb grocery store, fresh, frozen, canned, and freeze-dried pretty much year-round. They're the only fruit my autistic son will eat, so I always have a supply. OP is not the a-hole no matter what blueberry availability looks like, though, and his behavior is terrible. I hope the stepdaughter wasn't there to witness all this. OP, keep in mind this isn't her fault at all, and to not hold her father's assholery against her. That's all for today. If you're enjoying this story, please like the video and share your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you.